Welcome back to Clue Me In, the podcast where we unravel the weirdest disappearances, creepiest cold cases, and kind of mysteries that still keep people guessing. I'm Liv.
I'm Kay.
And I'm Grace, your unpaid detective, and contrary to what you might think, I'm just a wannabe with a self-awarded PhD in jumping to conclusions.
Every episode, Liv and I will break down a mystery while Grace reacts, theorizes, and ultimately delivers her definitive answer.
And today's case is another local mystery for us, one that's haunted Ohio residents for years, and it's especially close to home since it happened right here in Columbus, Ohio. We are talking about the disappearance of Brian Shaffer.
Oh, a disappearance in our backyard. Can't wait to never sleep again.
We'll try to stick around because this one gets wild, and it's still unsolved to this day. All right, Grace, picture this. Columbus, Ohio, March 31st, 2006. It's a typical Friday night, and 27-year-old Brian Shaffer is out bar hopping with his friends. He's a med student from Pickerington, and they end the night at the Ugly Tuna Saloona in the Short North.
Ooh, Pickerington, that's where I'm from.
I know, and that's kind of what makes this super interesting. So something about this night that he went out with his friends, we know that he had some big plans. So according to those close to him, he was actually going to propose to his girlfriend, Alexis. So his future looked bright until everything took a pretty dark turn.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
So that dark turn was taken at 1:55 a.m. Surveillance footage shows Brian chatting with two women outside the bar, people he didn't know before that night. Then he walks into the bar and completely vanishes. No one ever saw him leaving, and there's no security footage that shows him exiting. It's as if he disappeared into just thin air.
Or found a portal.
Or found a portal.
Straight into that.
Just going right to it.
Also, who are these women if he was about to be engaged? Intriguing.
Yeah, but it is so the weird thing was that, like, everyone else at the bar that night was accounted for on the camera. So everyone who had gone into the bar was seen coming out of the bar, except for Brian. Like, he was never shown on that security camera.
The whole night?
Right. Like, since then, he's never been seen again.
Right.
Yes.
Was he seen going into the bar?
He was seen going into
Just
the
never
bar,
coming out.
never out,
Yeah. Gotcha.
and then gone.
Okay.
Now, there was a service exit, but it led into, like, an active construction zone. So some people think that he may have, like, stumbled onto the site, been injured, or even accidentally, like, buried during the construction.
Oh my gosh.
But
It fell into, like, a manhole or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
But, like, the security guards that were stationed there said, like, no one reported seeing anyone go into that site.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I mean, the search that followed was massive. Like, police, dogs, flyers, you name it.
And he was with a group of people.
Yeah, he went with two of his friends. Like, his best buddy and a friend.
Wow.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, they even checked the sewer system, still nothing. And while most of, like, his friends took polygraphs, one, Clint, who'd argued with Brian earlier that night, refused.
There's always a Clint.
There really is always a Clint, I can confirm.
So this is when it takes a strange twist. Months later, Alexis, who was his girlfriend at the time, kept calling Brian's phone, hoping that there would be a sign that he was alive. Usually it went straight to voicemail, like never rang or anything. But then on September 2006, it rang and it pinned off of Hilliard, Ohio's tower. The and the phone company said that, like, it could have been a glitch, but, like, that timing's kind of eerie that after so many times of her, trying, one time it pins, and it's a place in Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's, like, 30 minutes from the Short North, maybe. So definitely, like, not far enough away where it's super unlikely that he'd be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then in 2008, tragedy struck again. So, when was it that he actually disappeared? 2006. Okay, yeah. So he disappeared in 2006. He's been gone for 2 years. And then Brian's father actually passed away suddenly.
In 2008?
In 2008.
Okay.
He actually, like, it was a giant storm and, like, a tree fell on him.
Whoa.
Like, it was a pretty,
This family is, like, that's a lot of...
I know. Just
tragedy
trauma
all at once.
and tragedy, yeah. So a really weird thing is that on the online condolence page, someone signed it and it said, "To Dad, love Brian, U.S. Virgin Islands."
That's not spooky at all.
Right. Investigators traced the message to a public computer in Franklin County, Ohio, and it had said, like, U.S. Virgin Islands. So it was a hoax. Like, that's kind of what it comes out to be. It was a hoax, but still incredibly disturbing.
Why would somebody do that?
Yeah, I know.
Or, like, if it, I don't know, if it was Brian, like, why would he change the location or, I don't know. That's just weird.
It is. It's just weird. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like, and over the years, there's been, like, alleged sightings of Brian across the globe. Like, Mexico, Canada, even Europe sometimes. But the most notable one was a homeless man in Mexico who his photo actually went viral in 2020 because he looked just like Brian.
Like what Brian looked like in 2006?
Yeah.
Or what he would have looked like now?
I think it was what he looked like in 2006.
Yeah, and I mean, he was a 20, I think he was late 20s, so it wasn't like, you know, when kids go missing. And
right.
Yeah.
But that kind of got, like, fizzled out because facial recognition rolled it out as an option.
Oh, okay. So someone thought it looked like him, but it didn't, like,
the
actually
internet
find
thought
a
it looked like him.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, there were also other times that he was found on camera. I think there was someone, like, there was a video of someone either going into it was a gas station or something.
I feel like I remember that, actually.
Okay, and then, like, his mom or his sister was like, "That's him. Like, that is him." But then facial recognition rolled that out as well.
When I feel like if, like, I don't know, if someone in your family goes missing, you're looking for them.
Right.
And so maybe, you know.
Right.
It might have been someone that had similar qualities, but.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe it wasn't.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was.
Yeah. But it is wild because actually a lot of investigators believe that he still could be alive. So, like, they're just like, could he be in hiding, or was he actually a victim of something more sinister?
And if he had, like, a future ahead of him, why would he go into hiding?
And that's the thing. Like, that's the mystery. Like, why?
And people knew he was planning to propose.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like
it sounds like some close friends, close family, like, said that afterwards.
Right.
Yeah. But there's even been speculation that he was targeted by the so-called smiley face killers. I don't know if you've heard.
No.
Yeah, so they're a group who I know, it's creepy. Caitlin's
like
over here just, like, cringing. Yeah, it's a group allegedly behind, like, a string of drownings involving, like, college-age men.
Oh.
So, yeah, really. But, and then they would leave, like, smiley face
That was my question, why they were called that. That is pretty sinister. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so, like, let's circle back to Brian having big plans. So that night, he invited his brother and his brother's girlfriend to see a comedy show. So why would he make those plans if he was planning on disappearing?
Yeah. So, do we know what he talked to those ladies about?
No, the security footage is literally just, like, we only see it on the security footage.
Oh.
So, you know, there's no sound or anything.
But I'm wondering
we were just seeing
if they were questioned. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think they were. Like, from the research
Which seems odd to me. If there's no camera footage, but there's camera footage of him.
But you also have to think he was at a bar. So,
That's
like,
true.
how many people did he talk to that night?
That's
and,
true.
Yeah, I don't know. But, he also, like, another thing, going off of what Kaylin was saying, just about, like, if you're planning to disappear, like, why would you do certain of these things, is that he called his girlfriend Alexis around 10 p.m. just to, like, check in, say I love you, nothing sounded off, and that's another thing. Like, if you
and he
wanted
disappeared at, like, 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's not like he called her, like, right before.
Right.
That's, like, a few hours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his disappearance is, like, one of the strangest and most haunting mysteries that I feel like Columbus has ever seen.
Gosh, for sure.
Yeah, and it's either, like, an accident, like a complete fluke accident, or, like, something happened to him, or he planned it, and I feel like neither one of those are great.
Or, like, someone took him, killed him.
Right,
Like
that's
that.
what I mean.
But, like...
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to add up because he also wasn't seen on the security footage. That's the weird
bizarre.
thing.
Yeah.
If he left and then was never seen again, that's one thing.
But there's no evidence of him leaving.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in 2 a.m., 1:55 is almost 2 a.m., and bars usually stop or close right at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So I would think there's probably not like an influx of people at
For
1:55 to where he just got swept up in all the people. Like, there were probably not enough people there to where he wasn't seen on camera, which is bizarre as well.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So let's get into the different theories about what might have happened, because there's a lot of them, actually.
Oh, wow, yeah.
There are.
Yeah, so the first one is that it could have been a medical emergency or an accident.
Yeah.
So a lot of people believe that Brian may have had, like, a sudden health issue, like a seizure or a heart problem, and collapsed, and, like, it was somewhere out of sight. So,
Did he
like,
have a history, though, of...
No, he was in good health, and, like, extensive searches obviously turned up nothing. So that's just, like, one theory. But he was in good health. There's... Yeah. And then another theory was, like, was he drugged? You know, there were rumors of people slipping things into drinks at the bars around that time. So maybe he was drugged and became disoriented and wandered off. Like, that's what some people think as well.
But with that, there's no evidence for that, because, like, no toxology report came back saying that there was any drugs in the drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but unless someone, like, took the evidence...
Right.
Because his body was
That's
never
true.
found, so there's
Yeah.
no way of knowing, like, he was drugged, and then later they found his body, and there were no... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one is that he did it himself, that he voluntarily did it.
Like, planned it?
Yeah, they think that he planned to vanish, that he was dealing with the grief over his mother's recent passing, and that maybe he felt, like, overwhelmed with the pressure and of, like, proposing to his girlfriend and then the Miami trip, and that he just used that as, like, an escape plan.
Oh, I don't think I realized. So his mom passed away.
Yeah, I think we forgot to mention that. But
Then he disappears, and then 2 years later his dad passes away.
Yeah, like, there was a lot of tragedy.
That is a lot of
going
tragedy.
on. Yeah.
But I feel like if you're making plans, even just that night, so if we want to rule out the proposal plan, right? You're making plans later in that evening. So I feel like, unless that's just was part of his plan, like, you know, why would we're not suspecting it because he made plans.
Yeah. No,
Maybe.
I mean, that's true. It is just weird that, like, I mean, some of the other research I did showed that he was, like, he had dinner with his family that night, like a dinner or lunch or something, and then, like, it was almost like a decision to go out with his friends. Like, it was like, oh, yeah, like, let's go out. Like, I think they went to the Funny Bone, which is, like, where they have, like, comedy, like, comedians and stuff. And so, like, they went to the Funny Bone first, and he invited his brother, and, like, it just all seemed like it was just
normal.
this impromptu thing, and yet he's just, gone. So, another theory is the construction site theory. So, this was going around a lot around the time that he actually disappeared. Not so many people are really holding on to this one as much, but it was actually a pretty big theory in the beginning because behind the bar there was an active construction zone, the service exit. So, some people, like, have been speculating, and some people do still believe this, that he fell into a pit and then was, like, buried in concrete.
But the issue with that one is still that the security guards said that were stationed by said they didn't see anyone.
Right.
And nobody saw him go out of the bar, so that's an issue. And, like, no searches found any trace of him anywhere.
I wonder, though, if, you know, there was an accident and maybe someone saw it and didn't want the liability. And so then they, like...
That's a good point.
Took care of it.
About that.
Yeah.
You know? And maybe it was an accident and
A cover
also
up.
something else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because if there was, like... But again, why would someone be, like, working at construction site at 1:55 a.m.? So I don't know.
Yeah, and just, like, miss the body. Like, well, I'm gonna concrete this. Like...
But for nobody to see it as well. Like, that's the, like... That's the weird part.
That is so weird.
Like, nobody saw him.
With the same, like, line of thinking of someone being involved, let's go back to Clint.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I don't want to go back to Clint.
I forgot about Clint.
Yeah. Let's go. Okay, so Brian's friend Clint was the only one from that night who refused to take a polygraph test.
Which is kind of suspicious. Like, why? What do you have to hide?
Exactly. And they argued that evening.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. Yep, they argued earlier that evening before they went out. So a lot of people are just kind of like, he knows something more than he's letting on, because why would you refuse that?
Or even if it's just completely unrelated to the disappearance, there's might be something that he doesn't want to come out. But still.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you look good, dude.
He may know more than he's letting on, but that doesn't mean he killed him. That doesn't mean, like,
But don't you think you'd want to know? 20 years later, there's still no evidence, nothing happened. Like, if I knew something, even if it painted me in a bad light, I feel like, I mean, unless, obviously, I had something to do with it. Yeah. I feel like I would want to come clean.
For sure. Yeah. And then, of course, there are the things we talked about earlier about the cell phone ping and the online message after his father's death. Yeah.
Which would be just weird and lead to him faking it, I feel like.
Well, yeah, and that's, like, the big, I guess you could say, controversy. It's, like, whether he's alive or whether he's dead. So that goes into, like, the pictures that have been going around the internet. So the photo of the homeless man in Mexico went viral, and he looked just like Brian. Right. But with that one, facial recognition said, nope, not him. But then there's been other photos in Europe, Canada. So there's people still think there's a possibility he would be alive.
Yeah. Right. So, tons of theories, but still no answers.
Well, and that, I mean, either he has, like, a lot of doppelgangers, you know, like, of just right. What are the odds that all these people look like him, or are people just searching for answers and trying to find something that isn't there?
And that's what I wonder. And he didn't have a unique, like, if you look him up, like, he
just like a generic guy.
I mean, he was just a
generic Joe.
Yeah, for sure. So it's not impossible that there are quite a few people who resemble him. And, all right, Grace. You've heard the story, every eerie detail, every baffling clue.
The mystery's waiting.
So tell us, what's your theory?
What really went down?
I feel like this one is just odd. Like, I feel like if we go to, you know, that he did it because of all of the pressure, all of the grief, or whatever, there's other things that I feel like most people go to first, like self-destructive behavior that doesn't lead to you faking your own disappearance. Yeah. And it doesn't sound like he was showing any other signs of distress, right? Like, sure, maybe he was, like, grieving his mom or whatever, but it doesn't sound like he was neglecting school or isolating himself. So I feel like that one just is very unlikely. And then obviously, like, a portal would be unlikely as well, but that one's just funny because if there's no sighting of him on the camera, that's just weird. So, I don't know. I feel like I gotta go with, like, an accident of some sort. I don't want to fathom that it's the smile face killers.
Yeah, smiley face killers.
I don't want to believe it's that, especially because we live so close. So I'm gonna not say it's that because I don't want it to be. So I think that it's probably just, like, an accident, which I feel like is, like, the lamest theory to go with, but...
Do you think it's, like, an accident covered up by someone? Yeah, or do you think it was just, like, nobody's found him?
Right.
I feel like because nobody's found him in 20 years, and Columbus is, like, a very populated area, and with the searches, I feel like something happened. Now, whether it was, like, an accident with Clint, or, I don't know, or, like, the construction site, but I feel like... It's hard to believe that nobody was involved, but I don't think that it doesn't seem like it would have been intentional. So I feel like something maybe accidentally happened.
And why do you think he was never found leaving?
I don't know. That one's weird.
Well, you know, I was thinking, I'm also kind of curious, like, did they track the friends' movements in the bar, like, when they were looking through cameras? Because, like,
interesting.
What were they doing while he was just disappearing?
Yeah, there is some stuff about that. Like, that they were like, okay, where is Brian? And then they, like, eventually, after looking for him for an amount of time, they were like, he must have just found a ride or got home. And then they left. That's kind of where that was left.
Good to know.
But I don't know. Also, I keep going back to the fact of, even if he encountered a lot of people, that, like, he was caught on camera talking to these two people. And why also weren't they involved in the questioning? Or, I don't know.
Or why were those two specific girls, like, pointed out?
Yeah, mentioned, but then not followed up on.
I think it's because they were, like, the last people he was seen talking to on the cameras. Like...
Which then makes me feel even more like me. I don't know. That's just weird to me. Like, you're talking to these two strangers that you've never met before. Well, maybe you have.
Right.
But these two people that are, like, unnamed. And then you're not seen again.
Right.
On camera or in real life.
Yeah.
It's just suspicious. Yeah. Was he seen? I forget. Was he seen going back into the bar?
Back into the bar, but not out.
Yes. So it really is a weird setup because the bar was... So there were elevators going up to the bar.
Oh, okay.
So the last time he was seen was in between the elevator and the bar.
Ooh.
But there was nowhere he could have... The only other two places he could have gone, because he didn't go back down the elevator, the only other two places that were up there was the bar or that... the construction zone back area place.
I wonder if something happened in the elevator.
Oh shoot, I said elevator. Escalator. They were escalators. Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Okay.
But was he seen, were there cameras on the escalator?
Yeah, the cameras were like facing the escalator. And so you could see people who were talking, like, at the top of the escalator, which is where he was seen talking with these girls.
Gotcha.
But then he was kind of seen walking out of the frame and never back into the escalator. But the only place he could have gone was either
out the service door.
Out the service door.
Or to the bar.
To the bar, yeah.
That's spooky. I feel like someone was involved.
Yeah.
Even if it was accidental.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, whether it was someone was involved, he chose to disappear. Yeah. His disappearance is still one of the biggest mysteries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like 20 years. Well, 19. But still.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But still, I mean, people are still curious about it and looking and... Yeah. So, I mean, for our listeners, too, if you have any information about his disappearance, please reach out to the Columbus police. Because, I mean, his family and friends are still searching for answers.
Yeah. And I was young, obviously, when he disappeared. So I'm curious to see, like, if any of my family knows or remembers the story.
Yeah, because he's quick.
But I just don't remember, like, hearing about him. Which is, like, also bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I did and I just didn't recognize. I don't know.
Right. Well, and until you, like, hear the details, sometimes you don't think about, like
maybe I heard his name or whatever, but... Yeah, I don't know. I feel like accident of some sort, maybe some other involvement from someone else. That's my definitive, conclusive answer.
Love it. Well, thanks for listening to Clue Me In. If you have any theories about what happened to Brian, send them our way.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share your thoughts with us. Let's keep the conversation going. You can find us on Instagram at @ClueMeIn_podcast.
And now we all know why I don't like escalators.
See you next time on Clue Me In.